All right, welcome to the book club. I'm Dylan, here with the rapper turned actor turned podcaster, Keith. What's up, buddy?
Is that right? Oh, that's my qualifications.
Yeah, I remember you.
Present rapper.
We also have a special guest for his third time around, I want to say. The real head of IT, Magic. What's up, buddy?
You gotta understand, I do what I do for the good of the podcast. Anyway.
You love to see it.
Or I think you mean common in hot. Hey.
All right.
Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some Steam and streamers, and this week we'll be discussing Apple TV's newest hit, Silo. If you'd like to recommend a book or movie for us to read or watch, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, so please download and subscribe. Magic, had you watched the show and then done the book? Like, what was your progression here?
I picked up the show first. I started watching when it was about 7 weeks in. When the show ended, I was like, I gotta keep going. I physically went to a library to get a library card, to get the Libby app, to get the audiobook.
You know, you can just get, as long as you're a Massachusetts resident, you can get a Boston Public Library card online and get the Libby app.
The Minuteman Network.
Oh, you're a Minuteman guy. Okay. Respect.
I'm also a Minuteman guy, but that's something different.
Hey. Stock up, stock down. Keith, what do you got stock up for Silo? Not Wool, but Silo, the TV show.
Stock up Grandpa Joe from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Mm-hmm. So Grandpa Joe, he gets a lot of shit. And rightfully so. Yeah. So just for those that are aware, he basically was bedridden with Charlie's 3 other grandparents. He's kind of sitting there, and then all of a sudden, Charlie gets a ticket, and he's like, I can walk. I can get out of bed now, you know? But what about Walker? Can we talk about Walker for a little bit here? Because Walker, quote-unquote, works down at the Down Deep. Mm-hmm. And in the show, they really made her character a lot more pronounced, and obviously in the book, it's a he. But she's an able-bodied person. She's probably 65?
Yeah, age might hit you different in the Down Deep. She could be 40.
She, for 26 years, has not left her room. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Because she can just sit there, listen to her radio, mess around with shit the whole day, and not do brutally awful work. So she just basically is getting a free pass because she doesn't want to leave her room. She's just taking advantage of everyone. Walker is my favorite character in the book, and now I see that mooching off everyone and making everyone else do hard work. And then Juliet, as a child, comes down, and she's like, you got to work when you're down here. Mind you, she isn't doing shit. She's just sitting in her room the whole day. And she sends her to hard labor camp for 10 years. So stock up Grandpa Joe. He was at least old. He at least had a reason to be in bed. He didn't spend 26 years there. Stock down Walker.
What was his reason to be in bed? He had literally no reason. And also think about
he's old.
So was Walker. And think about he was in
not
bed.
26 years prior.
She's got some agoraphobia. You got to give people some grace, Keith. All right. I don't know. I think you got too much hate in your heart. And if you got hate in your heart, you got to let it out.
We talked about this before. You can't just tell someone to do something that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. If she had put in 30 years of hard work down there, and then the last 5 years she kind of was in that retirement little home there, fine. But 26 years? She would have been 40.
She's old, so she probably put in a lot of good hard years down there. How do you think she acquired all that stuff? Plus, she's super knowledgeable. So if you have the know-how, then you can work from home, which is basically what she's doing. Good for her. She doesn't need to go to the pits. She can just, tinker at home. Perfect.
Magic, what do you think?
If she's actually 60 and has been there for 25 years, she had a good hard 40 years before that, right? So she put in her time and is now reaping the benefits.
Exactly. There you go.
She wasn't working there when she was 4, was she? I don't know.
Who knows?
Juliet was working at 13, so.
But she's do as I say, not as I do, so I don't really trust her.
Magic, what do you have for stock up?
Stock up IT.
Oh, wow.
All right.
As someone who myself works in IT, it sometimes gets a bad rap. It gets a bad rap in the show, but like I said, it's all for the good of the silo. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They're just trying to make things as best they can for people in whatever way they see fit.
IT also has a bad rap on this podcast because they were a big stock down for me last time. The wife was actually upset because Keith just breezed over the fact that I said IT is watching us for what we're doing on our work computers or whatever. I think I insinuated it was of a sexual nature, and you didn't pick up on that, I guess. I don't know. I honestly don't remember.
Sometimes I edit my laugh out because I overpower. So I think I gave it to you on that, but I probably edited it out so you get your points off.
All right, yeah. Do you actually think, Magic, that in the show, IT is doing what's good for the silo?
That's where it becomes complicated, right? When I watched the show the first time, obviously don't like them. Reading the book, and then as you get some of the answers more in the book than you do the show, you kind of understand the bigger picture of it.
So you're okay with a totalitarian governmental
Ends justify
system?
the means.
Yeah.
I said IT, not judicial. Judicial's a whole fucking separate thing.
Yeah, I guess we are talking about the show here. But isn't Tim Robbins kind of like the head of both when it comes down to it? Like there's no separation of powers here. The judge, whatever her name is, I forget, is just kind of like a figurehead. Yeah, like she doesn't actually do anything. She's like the King of England or something like that.
Which I don't understand. Why does he possess that authority?
He knows all the stuff. He's like the head honcho. He knows all the other silo situations, which obviously if you've reached this point and you're listening to this podcast, like there's going to be book spoilers in here too, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. So continue downloading and just continue listening, but yeah, it's going to be hard to do. I mean, he knows everything. So that's why he has like, there's some sort of overlying authority probably that we haven't even met in the book that decides, who. My first stock up is having a terrible imagination, because I do. And I didn't think that was going to be a good thing. But after reading the book, and then you see the ideas that you had in your head about what was going on in the silo, like actually come to life in a visual format, it was wonderful for me. Because like the silo itself, I guess I have a problem zooming out and seeing big things in my head. I just can't see them. So for me, the silo was like that level in GoldenEye 64 when they're like in the nuclear silo, the nuclear missile silo. It was just like a big nuclear missile silo that probably had like a few hundred people in it. And the stairway was just like a catwalk around the whole thing that just went in a concentric circle. I didn't picture this 10,000 person, absolutely massive silo with this staircase in the middle that has like one walkway that goes out to every level. It just immediately looked awesome. And after reading the book, when you first see that, I was like, okay, even if for nothing else, the visuals alone are just going to get me. Mm-hmm. It can be like a blessing and an issue is when you watch a show and then read a book. Because the silo part would be cool because now you can visualize that and like that makes a lot of sense. But I feel like sometimes when you see characters, they like take on the form of the actor.
Yeah, Tim Robbins is not ugly. He's a good-looking man.
He's beautiful, yeah.
It also is funny that Tim Robinson's roles reversed with him in Shawshank Redemption, his most famous movie. He became
he's the warden.
Yeah, he's the warden in this scenario and then like Juliet's like him.
Yeah, she doesn't have to go through a shit tunnel though. At least not yet.
Well, I think if you go outside in that radiation, that's kind of going through a shit tunnel.
Yeah. All right, Keith, what else do you have for stock up?
Stock up, this kind of relates to Magic's stock up in IT, but stock up taking credit for others' work.
Big proponent of that.
Nothing worse than this in the real world, but it happens in the silo apparently too. I think it was episode 9. It ends with Bernard in the IT side trying to track where they are with the hard drive. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we don't know where they are. And Bernard's like, they're good at hiding, but I'm better. And you're like, oh shit, I didn't realize he had it like that. I didn't know he kind of had those talents. Then we cut to Juliet telling the two like nerdy people she's with. I don't know who those people were exactly, but cuts to them, her being like, you better come with me because Bernard's better than this guy. Like he's going to find out where we are. And they turn to one of the guys. He's like, she's right. Bernard is better than me. Then we cut back to the actual ID department. And it's the smart dude that's on the computer, not Bernard, being like, okay, I found them. And then Bernard's like, you mean I found them? It's like, wait, what? Shit. I was such a weird cut-by-cut scene because Bernard's not doing anything. He's just watching the guy, and the guy says, I found him. And then he takes credit for it. I was like, huh?
In the finale episode, when he actually does get on the computer, all he does is turns it off.
Yeah. Like the show IT where someone calls and they just say, restart the computer. That's all he can do. He can't do anything else.
It's like, hold on, I know exactly what to do, and just pulls the plug underneath the machine.
Yeah, it's like
that's why they pay me the big bucks.
Yeah, exactly. That didn't make a lot of sense.
Magic, did you have another stock up?
I did. Kind of another departmental stock up, but engineering, especially of the silo itself, how that thing has still functioned like from a structural standpoint. I don't know in the show if they had said how long it's been there, but it seems like it's been a while, and they have to fix the generator to keep things going, and then like I don't know, like when things break, but nothing ever seemed like worn down in the show. It all seemed like to be in perfectly working order.
That ties in with one of my stock ups, which was a good wrench, because it seems like, at least early on in the season, everyone was like, we need Juliet, like something's happening, we need Juliet. Knox, who's her boss, is just standing in the control room, dick in his hands, has no idea what's going on. He's like, I can't do anything without Juliet. It's like, you're her boss, like you should probably know how to handle stuff. And so Juliet comes running in, grabs a wrench, goes into the generator, comes out like 2 seconds later and is like, don't worry everyone, it's all fixed. So she just needed a wrench, went in there and tightened a nut, and everyone's like, oh, thank God. Like, thank God we have Juliet here so she knows what's going on. You know, she didn't really do much. Like, the fact that no one else knows anything, it was actually, I think engineers kind of a stock down. Like, Juliet's the only one that can handle a wrench in this whole place. It's concerning for the integrity of the entire silo.
Well, also, wouldn't recycling be way more important, just because you can't recreate metals, right? All the metal they have is there. That's it. They're just like throwing stuff down that chute. You may need to like kind of preserve some of this resources. You don't have any more to use, right?
I'm actually kind of surprised. I didn't even include it because I assumed you were going to have it for a stock up, but was recycling, because you're a big proponent that recycling doesn't exist in this world. So I just assumed that you would be super happy that recycling is actually doing something in a completely fictional world.
I think recycling exists as long as there's a free market that says it exists. That's my theory, kid.
Don't even know what that means.
If you go to a metal scrap facility, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not the government. That's a free market that is taking in things and recycling them.
Yeah, I got you.
There's been plenty of articles now out there that are saying, yeah, recycling is actually bad. It's not like good for the environment. I just saw a clip on Instagram where some guys like, the worst thing you can do is recycle, because they literally take that, they send it off to like poorer countries, and then they basically pollute their rivers with it, all the plastic. You're welcome. I didn't recycle.
I'm with you on real recycling being fake. I mean, on the plastic that you quote unquote recycle, there's like numbers on it. When everyone sees the recycling symbol and they're like, oh, it's recyclable, but actually only I think 1 and 2 are recyclable. The rest are trash, and people throw everything into their recycling. And then once it gets into that recycling truck, it really just gets like shipped off to a landfill in China. So yeah, not ideal. But stock up for the recycling. You think that with the recycling though, they'd be able to fabricate a fan blade, because when they take that whole generator apart, they're like hammering this fan blade that's totally bent out of, like, there's no way you're going to get that thing back in the 15 minutes. And they're just like, how much longer? It's like, wouldn't you have just fabricated a new one so you could just plug and play? It really didn't make any sense.
I don't know. I didn't think they knew what the problem was though until they opened it up.
The generator was just this giant spinning thing that has a bunch of fans in it. You just think that you'd have pieces prepared. Could be this, it could be that. We only have 20 minutes. Let's be ready for all the things.
That's what Walker was working on.
As opposed to somebody just like taking an angle grinder to this giant fan blade that's just beating the shit out and be like, oh yeah, this will take me 15 minutes to fix. Like, what the fuck?
Well, the biggest dude in the room is just yelling instructions from the control room.
Knox, stock down Knox. What does he do? I honestly don't know what he does here. Like, he should be in Office Space. You know, what is it exactly that you do here? Like, is he a people person? I don't know. I had one which was changing genders.
Jesus Christ.
What's wrong with that?
No.
Stock's already way high. You know, we support all gender changings, and especially
Kid's
when
been listening to Chappelle a lot.
Especially when they change them between a book and a show. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. I thought it worked really well with Walker being switched to a woman. It makes a lot of sense. Like, Juliet's mom dies, which we knew in the book, but it wasn't really explored. It was explored more in the show. It makes sense that then she would find like a mother figure in the Down Deep, and that would like kind of help raise her, which was like an important time for her. Also, and probably more importantly, what kind of dad leaves his daughter with some reclusive guy that's 300 floors away that takes you 3 days to get to? It seems a little creepy in the book that her dad would just be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to leave you with this person. So it makes more
Well,
sense.
in the book, she ran away, right?
Yeah, in
I
the
don't
book
think
she runs away, which is true. But you have to assume her dad would throw some feelers out. And if people are like, oh yeah, I don't know, she's spending a lot of time with this old guy that no one knows anything about that just stays in his room the whole time, probably figure that one out. In the show, I think it makes more sense that it's a woman. And that's a shout out to Caroline for that one.
I agree. That's I don't think it really mattered, but I think you're right. The mother figure was kind of key.
Yeah,
That was good.
And I just think in general, this show did a really good job of switching races, sexual orientations, or whatnot. It made it like seamless, and it also was like on top of it. It just was like, okay, great, like also perfect. It makes a lot of sense. Sometimes I feel like shows can kind of force that, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Where this one,
Can I add one thing to that though?
Yeah.
I didn't care for Juliet's accent. It was like,
oh, dude, save it for hate. Save it for hate.
but that's the one thing. They could all have different accents. He doesn't need to be American unless that takes place in America, and that's spoilers alerts. You know, I don't know.
I think it does because they reference Atlanta in the book. But
okay, well,
and you probably can't have different accents because you're in a silo for 200 years. So like it'd be weird.
that's why I was thinking it'd be cool to have if all the people down deep had like a New Jersey accent, right? And the people up top are like British. Like,
Yeah.
hello.
I get it. We'll talk a little bit more about that
Anyways.
in the hate section because I didn't have a lot there. Last quick one. Pez dispensers or Pez in general. Honestly, a terrible candy. I don't know why we thought these were great as a kid. Candy was terrible. Like genius marketing by them, I guess, to like throw Donald Duck's head on it and it opens up and like you have this terrible candy.
The mechanics of it were awful too.
Yeah.
So It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Didn't make a lot of sense. Like the only thing that was fun about it, I guess, was like opening up as wide as you could and then putting your finger or your willy in it and then slapping it down.
Jesus Christ.
That was probably the only enjoyable part. It seemed like the Pez was supposed to be important somehow and it had a little thing attached to it, but it didn't seem to mean anything. What do we got for stock down?
Pez is my stock down. I the opposite direction. It plays a vital role in the book, like you mentioned, but it's not even a top 100 relic, in my opinion. If I just like think about popular toys when we were a kid, I can name 10 that are better. I was thinking you could have had, you know, that ankle jump rope thing? How fucking weird was
Skip
that,
It?
right? Yeah, skip it. Devil sticks. You remember those?
I do. Those...
Imagine if they found these and were like, what? These are so stupid. Tamagotchis, Furbies, Tickle Me Elmos. I think the better thing would just been a pack of baseball cards. How fucking crazy would that to be? Be like, what is baseball? What's HR? What's these numbers
Yeah,
are on this? You know, you just have no idea what any of this is. That would be way cooler. Pez, stupid. Stock down.
Yeah.
What would you guys think would be the coolest relics that you could find?
Well, probably like the 1970s Playboy collection.
Yeah, well, that I think is probably happening in the silo though. People are
yeah.
taking. Oh, I guess they can't take
They
photos.
can't take
I guess
photos.
people. IT's watching that stuff, right? Magic.
We're always watching, babe.
Yeah, I guess. I think baseball cards is a really good one. Maybe some sort of like Monopoly, you know, like the board game, because you'd be kind of confused. Like, what is park?
They're like Park
Yeah.
Place.
Like, what is
the
a
hell's park?
railroad? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, good point. In the book, everyone's allowed to have kids' books. Like that wasn't a big deal. Where in the show, is a huge deal that someone found a kid's book or a book in general, right?
Because, yeah, in the book, too, it's like they just think they're like mythical creatures. But it was either Sheriff Holston or like Juliet or someone was able to figure out evolution by just looking at kids' books. She was like, oh, it makes sense. They have 4 legs and noses. Like, we have those too. Like, I could see how we came from
Well,
them.
we don't believe of evolution on this podcast.
Oh, right. I forgot about
go
that.
on.
Yeah. No, it was an interesting wrinkle in the show to have them like not have access to any of that stuff. But I think that honestly makes a lot of sense too. Like, I'm cool with it either way. Magic, what did you have for stock down?
I mean, yeah, tying directly into that antiquing. Like we said in the book, you seem like you're allowed to have some certain things, and here it's like anything you have, it's like, all right, your life's on the line now. Pez dispenser, yeah, you're probably gonna die for that. So, and these people that are trading in it, what's the point, right? Like, what good is that gonna do you?
Unless you're going to snap your willy in that Pez dispenser, then what's the point of having it?
Kid really like that.
Yeah, it does. None of it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I guess having that book, that like Atlanta sights and whatever of Atlanta, that I feel like would be valuable just because it'd be amazing to like look through that. But like a Pez dispenser that has Elvis's head on it or whatever it's going to be, like, I wouldn't want to hold on to that. Are you insinuating that I was having Elvis bite down on my willy?
Nope, but now we are.
My first stock down is OSHA. Some of you might be familiar with that in a workplace setting. But I guess we don't really need it in the Down Deep. I talked about the whole generator scene, which was honestly my least favorite part of this whole series. And I thought the series was very good. Just it made no sense. They go up into like 3 stories up into this generator on these like swings that it looks like they just put together. Why didn't they have like harnesses? Why weren't like people on belay just in case someone falls, you can catch them? It didn't make a lot of sense whatsoever. And then Juliet going down and using the hose on the reactor part or whatever was happening where it was closed. Once again, 0 sense made. For starters, the most obvious is if that thing was going to heat up and it was going to save you time, why wouldn't you just start by putting a hose on it? Why let it get to max capacity and then put a hose on it? Doesn't make any sense. And then additionally, if we're actually talking about the real world, that thing's super duper hot. The second you put water on it and that steam comes off, your skin's falling off your face.
A nice hot tub in there.
Your skin's falling off your face.
I was like, the water would be really hot.
The water would be so hot, like volcanic hot. She would just melt into goo in there, but instead she's just like able to swim around. Really dumb. Logically, it makes no sense. I know they were doing it for a tense situation, but it was like, obviously she's not going to die because this is all the fakest thing I've ever seen. So if OSHA was there, they wouldn't support it, and I guess we don't need them.
All right, Summer fair.
Did you have another stock down, Keith?
My last one was Salem Witch Trials stock down. So I visited Salem, actually, Massachusetts, last year for a wedding. Did the ghost tour. That talked about the whole becoming a witch thing. And so it turns out, for those that are not aware of it, basically you could just be like, that person's a witch, and they would be like, all right, get him, go get him. Like, that person's a witch. And it wasn't just women, it was men and women. And they basically, the reason they said they did it is like, it was preemptive strikes. So people be like, shit, that person I think is going to call me a witch because like they've like they're a competing business. So they'd be like, that person's a witch. And then everyone would be like, get him.
Really smart, actually.
And at least they did have some sort of like, okay, we got to prove it. Or there's some rationale for why. Like a lot of people got accused and never were killed.
But wasn't it like drown them? And if they don't come up, then it's like our bad.
Yeah. Hey, that might have been some of the, it might have been. But in this, we're kind of, and you always think that's so terrible, but then we have Silo. The guy that just got arrested is like, yeah, she said she wanted to go outside, and they're like, case closed, let's get him. Let's go kill her. It's like, that's all you have to do?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you just everyone would be doing that constantly? You have to have like 2 people that just confirm it. And the problem too is Sims. Why was he out of prison? That really bugged me. She had just arrested him. The scene before, he's talking to the guards, and he's like, even though he's a clerk and he's supposed to be just a clerk, and you know he's had the whole story about being a janitor, just a janitor. All the people are scared of him. I'm like, so you're not a clerk. Everyone knows that you're not a, like. And then the next scene, he's out of jail. He was talking to the guards in the jail, and then the next scene, he's out and accusing her. So I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, they didn't show how he got out. It does make sense. I think you had to like draw your own conclusions as to how he got out, but it still doesn't make any sense because he was asking them for something. What was he asking for? Yeah, a phone call or something like that. He was like calling my wife. They're like, no, we can't. But then he's out. So it's like, wait, you can't get a phone call, but all of a sudden you're out?
Yeah, and then you're just like, the person that accused me is the person I just arrested. It's like, no qualms there. No conflict of interest in any way there. So
yeah, like if I was a kid on the playground.
Salem witches were better than this.
If I was a kid on the playground and like someone beat me in a foot race, I'd be like, nah, that kid said he wanted to go out. Simple as that.
He was trying to run really fast to get out of here, he told me. I don't know, it's weird.
It does seem like you can just say that person said it. And it's like, oh, well, do we need a trial? Like, nah, I don't. And also, like, what would a trial consist of? Someone would be like, I didn't say it. They'd be like, you did. It'd be like, well, he says you did.
Case closed.
So, case closed.
Well, who was there? Well, it was just the 2 of us. So I guess it's 1-to-1.
I'm with you there. Magic, do you have any other stock down?
While we're calling out public organizations, stock down PETA. What's up with the dogs in the silo?
Which dogs?
You never saw them, but when Walker went up to supply and the dogs were barking at...
That was DMX. That wasn't a dog. No? Just me?
Magic continue. When Walker went up.
Is that a door? All right, I'm out. See ya. I want out.
The supply lady was like, dogs, be quiet. I was like, wait, there are dogs here?
Yeah.
I felt like that was so unnecessary to have that happen. Because then you just go down a path of like, well, do the dogs just sit in the apartment all day long? Do they go out? Do they just like piss all over the stairs? Like, no outside time or anything?
Questions.
Like, what a terrible thing to have a dog in here.
Yeah, they just like piss and shit everywhere.
And the bunny rabbit, which was ill and no one could fix it except for like illegal methodology or something like that.
Yeah, they need to like take implants out of its brain. I feel like there is a rat issue in the book. It would make sense to either have like cats or like something to combat the rat problem. Yeah, interesting. I don't know why they had that. Doesn't seem to make any sense. There was a couple throwaway lines that I was kind of confused about in the show. Well, honestly, I feel like our tone has been pretty negative, so I think we got to flip the script around. Keith, what do we love about Silo?
The character backgrounds, I thought they were awesome. They filled in a lot of blanks on a lot of people. First episode with not being able to get pregnant because they basically were trying to force people, basically compliant people, only to have kids. I thought that was perfect reason why you'd freak out and like kind of go a little bit insane, which is what...
Rashida Jones's character?
Yeah, Rashida Jones. I also thought she was a phenomenal actor. I didn't think she had that kind of range. I thought it was really, really good acting job by her as well for that part.
I thought she was really good as well.
A lot of the additions, especially the first like 5 episodes, I thought were great additions.
That was my number one as well. I mean, it ties into it, but like the pace of the show, the book kind of happens pretty fast, even though it's like a 15-hour long book. Like the first little bit happens really fast. I think I talked about it on the podcast, but like within the first quarter of the book or third of the book, like Holston dies, the mayor dies, the deputy dies, and Juliet is getting let out, whatever the case is. But this, they just like slowed it down and just decided, okay, all that talk about Holston and his wife, which we don't really know at all, like let's make a whole episode about that. And they got Rashida Jones to do it, who was awesome. And it puts a lot of weight into Holston's decision to go out, because in the book, it's like, wow, he did all this for, he's been a sheriff for so long, and he just like cracks one day, and we knew a little bit about something that happened with his wife, but they dove into it, and I thought it was really, really well done. Additionally, with Juliet's background, because we don't really know anything about her background in the book, besides like her brother died in childbirth or whatever the case was, and her mom died. But they go into more there, and even like the George stuff, because Caroline had watched the show and then read the book, like done the magic route. And when she's reading the book, she was like, so George just like isn't in this? And she was like halfway done with it. I was like, well, he's like kind of referenced, but he's not like a character. But having that backstories was really good, as well as just having this, because I talked about it in our book podcast, how it didn't make any sense that no one was really questioning the society. Like there wasn't a sub-faction that was like, what the heck's going on here? But having that underground that exists in the show, I think that's real good tension, and also makes a lot of sense, because there would be, if there's 10,000 people, there's got to be 100 people that are wondering what the fuck they're doing there.
The one thing I wrote down first was definitely like the hook of like, you don't really know what you're getting into. Pace right off the bat, the character, the world building. I'm glad I didn't start right away, because I was like stoked to have 6 episodes to watch like back to back to back and not have to wait to like get answers. Some of the shows that leave like big cliffhangers or like questions then that get answered but only lead to like more questions. I feel like this has kind of like a pretty simple question of like, what are they doing here? Why are they here? But then kind of surrounding that and unfolding that, but also like doing a good job week to week of keeping you interested. And outside of like those middle 2 episodes with the generator stuff, like each episode was really compelling in like the direction that it was going.
Yeah, and I think that all relies on good characters. They had really good characters. I mean, at least I personally thought, outside of the accent, that like Rebecca Ferguson was a good Juliet and played that part well. Even, all the side folks, even Sheriff Holston was so good as well. Will Patton, I mean, as Marnes, I feel like he should be up for an Emmy as Marnes. He was so good.
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I like that they switched a lot of the character traits. Instead of having Marnes be like, I just like this girl for why he wanted Juliet as the next sheriff, it was Holston that had recommended her. And Marnes actually was like, nah, fuck this. I don't want this girl to be the next sheriff. I thought that was actually a good switch. I thought that was made sense.
In the book, it was just like, oh, she helped me on a case and she was really smart. I was like, wait, what? Where here, oh, there's a purpose behind it. Holston had a bigger plan and Marnes was like, oh, fuck that. Like, why are we having this random person? So
yeah,
I dug it. What did we think about, because this was a big one and mostly Magic, I'm wondering what you think about it, but the screen flicker during the power outage, when they restarted the generator or whatever and they showed the screen to the outside and it flickered with
it flickered from gray to green.
Yeah. Was that like a oh shit moment when you saw?
That was it was like, oh, the program stopped working and they actually showed what the outside was like. So in real time, you're taking what the characters are saying at face value, like especially from Allison and Holston's thing in the beginning of like, it's safe out there, they're lying to us from the screen. Then you see that and you're like, you want to believe that's true, right? Because you're really invested in their character, like felt good enough to go out, and you're like, oh, I saw that, like they were totally right.
Having read the book, it was like whatever to me, and it also wouldn't make any sense because in the book it's like the display in the helmet is what tells you it's green. But like, why would the overall display just like switch? It seems like a terrible idea by IT.
Yeah, like in hindsight, that was a very odd thing.
So it didn't make a ton of sense to me. But after thinking about it, I was like, oh, if I had just watched the show, I would be like, what the fuck just happened?
Oh, yeah.
Because Caroline was freaking out about it. My brother-in-law was like, have you got to the scene when the screen flickers? If I just watched the show, I'd be like, oh shit. And it does such a good job at making you believe the outside is safe. Because that's what the wife was asking me the whole time. She's like, oh, it's safe. What are they doing in there? What are they doing there? Tell me. I was like, I'm not going to tell you. I know this. Like, what do you just watched 2 episodes? That's what you want to know?
That was my one complaint about the book. Then they had Holston go outside and take the mask off. And that was like chapter 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wish they didn't tell me that. Because I would have been on that train the whole time too. And it was almost like a early reveal, which I think the TV show did a great job of not doing that. So even though it didn't make sense that it flickered to that, I do think it was good for the TV viewer to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When Holston goes out, was that the first or second episode? You think he's figured it out. He goes out, he starts to stumble, he's taking off his helmet. Like, oh, he gets it. They're poisoning him through his helmet.
Yeah.
So like then you get that moment of hope there, and then he takes off his helmet and then it gets worse. Or
even then people still thought, oh, it's poison from the suit that eventually just killed him.
Right.
Like it didn't have necessarily anything to do with the outside. I think the last thing I loved about it was usually when you read a book and then watch the show or a movie, whatever the case is, show or movie didn't do a good job of adapting the book. Like a Harry Potter, anything besides 1 and 3, they just cut so much stuff. It's like, oh, like there's so much more meat on there that they didn't get to. And I understand it's like, a movie, so you have to cut some stuff. You can't make it a 500-page book. Or it's just totally different where it's like they just take their own liberties and it goes like so far a different direction that you're like, this has nothing to do with it. I thought they towed the line really well with this show, where they made it pretty different. Like they included a whole judicial stuff. Billings has a much bigger role in the show. It's basically very different than the book, but it stays true to like the vibe and the themes of like everything that happened in the book and just expands on it. That I thought from like reading the book first, it was a really fun show to watch because it was different. So I was engaged with it because I was like, oh, this is like new stuff that I haven't read before that's included in here. But it was also the same in that the vibe felt true to it. All right, Keith, what do we hate about Silo?
The one thing that I didn't love is you can't really have this big of a conspiracy with that many people that are involved in it. They had the judicial, like whole police force. Then they had the IT section that were looking at cameras. They were like well involved in what was going on everywhere.
Close your eyes. Don't look.
Forget what you've seen.
Yeah, the thing with the book is that everyone was siloed, pun intended, and person in IT doesn't know the whole big picture. They just know they were one little thing, right?
Yeah, everyone had the wool pulled over their eyes.
That's a great point.
What was the point of the police if they have a judiciary police force? Like, it didn't really make sense that they added that in because now you just have 2 police forces.
Yeah, like the cops come from you and they're like, oh, it's not judicial, so whatever. Kind of how like Hitler's regime worked with lots of different police. Like, wait, which police are arresting me? But it didn't make sense there, and it doesn't make sense here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm with you on that part. Magic, what'd you hate about it?
Hate's obviously a strong word, but the
that's what
fact that there, like Keith was saying, that there's so many people involved, what's supposed to be 10,000 people, but between all the judicial people, all the people in IT, the thousands of raiders that they had that were conveniently on every level when they were trying to catch people. It's like, so how many like just normal citizens are there? It just seemed like there was more people in on like the bad side than the good side. I guess maybe that's what they want you to think.
I think both of those points are really good. That it seemed like there was just like a lot of bad people, quote unquote, and also the fact that a conspiracy only works if there's a few people that know. So you can't just have a conspiracy with everybody and then just tell them to close their eyes. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
What I thought he was going to do there was just shoot them all in the head. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that'd been sick.
Okay. Like this makes sense, because you can't just then assume like all those people aren't going to go home and be like, I just saw some wild shit, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they got wives, whatever. We've talked about it. So yeah, Juliet's American accent, it's just not good. It was like half her sentences were kind of in English, and then half her sentences were definitely in a British accent, and then the third half were in this gobbledygook mix. It was very confusing.
She's Swedish in real life.
Yeah, I think she's Swedish, but I think she has a British accent.
Yeah, whatever. So the third half was in a Swedish accent. That's the gobbledygook. And I thought she was good too, unfortunately. Like, I think she's super good in the Dune movie. I don't know if they did a different actress or just have everyone in the Down Deep have a British accent. You know what I mean? Just be like, she's so good that we're all these other people that don't do anything, they're all going to have British accents because she does. Honestly, it didn't work for me, and it like took me out of scenes sometimes when she was talking.
Yeah.
I guess, what did we think about the creation of Judicial? Because it was not even in the book at all, and it's a huge part of the show. So did we like Judicial? Did we not like?
They made it for like the twist element of like, no, it's actually IT running things, which I thought was a good reveal.
Yeah.
The other problem I had too was just the cameras in general. Like, it took it away again from being like one person knows all and he's doing it for the benefit of the silo in order to protect everyone from going outside, to we're going to watch everyone. This is 1984. We're going to control everyone. It became like one of those dystopians versus like if you have all those cameras and you have tons of information, where the whole point of the book is there's supposed to be no information.
Yeah, I thought the book made a lot more sense when it was just like whispers, you know, like they have spies everywhere. Like that makes a lot of sense. Like they know what's going on because they have, you know, little birds all over the place. Where they have cameras, but the cameras like would need to get fixed. So then like even the people that went in there to fix them would know what cameras are and that they existed.
Yeah.
It's like you can't just have a camera for 200 years that works in a mirror. And at no point was there like a little kid playing ball in the living room that like hit the mirror and the mirror cracked.
Well, they were like, oh, it's a oxygen sensor. That's what their excuse for what it was. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, you can see a reflection.
Yeah, you don't need to hide an oxygen sensor.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought the judicial creation was good. I think in the book, it's just like IT and specifically Bernard who like leads everything. So you kind of know like, okay, he's the bad guy and like everything's, you know, that comes out of his mouth is bullshit. So having this patsy there that is the entire judicial branch, I thought makes a lot of sense for the show. I was okay with it. I was a little confused at first. I was like, wait, who, what, where, when? I dug it. And especially when you find out that like the judge just doesn't know what's going on. And then everyone thinks it's Sims, you know, everyone's like watching. They're like, oh, Sims is the one behind it all. Magic, when you watched the show, did you know that Bernard, before the corn scene, did you know that he was...
Don't think so. Looking back on it, I think you're saying one of the big changes with Judicial and some of the other plot points was like to try to throw the viewer off, right? Like this mysterious Judge Meadows, that's definitely the person behind the curtain who's ruling and everything in the way that it is. And I feel like you could see it coming after a while, like just knowing how shows work. You're like, this is all kind of like intended misdirection, whether or not it's actually relevant to the story.
When he gave that awful eulogy, that's when you had to know. It's like, this guy, there's something off of this guy. What was that eulogy? Yeah. Holy shit.
Something off of this silver fox. Last thing for this section that I have, at least, if you guys have anything, let me know. But what did we think about the syndrome? It wasn't really explained. It definitely wasn't in the book. What did you guys think about that addition to the show?
So the syndromes of the syndrome was what cannibals get, right? So are we sure they just weren't eating humans? Hot take? No?
Hot take.
Just me?
Hot take.
Just me? Anyways.
I thought cannibalism, you get this like brain disease. Is it called the syndrome or whatever?
I only know it from, what's the Denzel movie there? Where they show up to the people's house.
Book of Eli?
And their hands are like shaking. And he's like, we got to go. And Mila Kunis is like, why? And he's like, look at their hands. They're shaking. They've been eating humans. And I'm like, oh, okay. Any person's hands that shakes.
Yeah. It's called Kuru. It's a very rare disease caused by infectious protein found in contaminated human brain tissue.
So yes?
Found from people in New Guinea who practice a form of cannibalism where they eat the brains of dead people as part of a funeral ritual. I'll eat your brains, Keith. I'll figure it out.
I think it's too early to tell.
Yeah, I agree with Magic.
It seems like there's like a lot of things that they had that like might be relevant in future seasons, or they might have just been there for kind of like a instant shock value, right? Like the screen flickering, did that mean anything for the future, or was that just like a, oh shit, like I can't wait to turn it next week because of that screen flickering? Or like you're saying, the Pez dispenser, did that actually mean anything, or was that just kind of there to be there?
I'm thinking the syndrome is going to play a bigger part in it going forward. I thought it had no basis in this show whatsoever and was like kind of useless, but I'm assuming it's just kind of like to set up the future stuff. Similarly, Common's character, which I guess would be my last hate, I thought Common was terrible in this, honestly.
I thought he was good.
Yeah, okay. I thought his acting was just like when he throws that guy over, like the whole speech he gives, I was like, it didn't do it for me. And I like Common in general, but it didn't do it for me. But I think he's actually going to be a good guy. That's my
he's
theory.
going to be playing the roles of Billings, I feel like, right?
I feel like he might play the role of Lucas.
Lucas, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I think he might be like Lucas.
Once he actually finds out, which I feel like, how would he not know, though, at this point? He knows everything.
Yeah.
There's cameras everywhere. It's
his wife was like, we have a plan. And I think their plan, like they might be just like moles for the underground, that they've been doing it for years and years and years kind of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, yeah, I think that's one of the things that is going to come up in future seasons that wasn't a part of the book, is that whole Flame Keepers thing, right? That was the secret society.
We also
or
know
whatever.
in book 2 and 3, there's a lot of this stuff that is maybe covered, like more the history and stuff of the characters. I wonder if that occurs in that. But yeah, you never know.
Well, I am going on a road trip next Saturday, and I will be listening to that book. Some studio notes. The show was created by Graham Yost. He wrote some episodes of the best miniseries ever created, Band of Brothers. Also did some Pacific episodes afterwards. He wrote Speed, heard of it. Broken Arrow, heard of it. Dark Reign, maybe you haven't heard of that one. But Speed and Broken Arrow, he wrote those two movies, which are classics, in my opinion. And he created and wrote Justified, which I haven't seen, but I know a lot of people really love that show. Graham Yost, he can hang. Silo, or Wool, was originally supposed to be made into a film in 2012, but was picked up by Apple TV as a series in 2021. They just renewed it for a second season, so we will be having season 2 to continue the story. Recast, rewrite, review. Keith, do we want to recast this? Did you have any recasters?
No, I thought they did a great job, like you mentioned earlier. Maybe Julia getting her an accent coach.
Yeah, there we go.
Dialect coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who I'd replace Common with. I thought his beard was really good. His beard is tapered. So he must have like a clippers as a relic or something like that he uses on that face, because it's ideal. Let's review it. So what do we think? Would you recommend it? Magic, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. Yes. One of those shows, if all 10 episodes were available when you start watching, it's the kind of thing you can do in a weekend.
That's what I did.
Yeah, it's exactly. Like, it's each episode like answers enough questions and has a hook at the end to get you to tune in next time while still like advancing the storyline. And I don't know what order I would go in, though, about the book first versus the show first, but I think it's definitely worth doing both because it's not like an exact copy. There's a lot of differences that make them pretty unique in the chapter to chapter part of it, but the overarching idea is still the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the simple fact that you said you don't know which order to do it in says a lot about the show itself, because normally it's like, yeah, read the book and then you'll get some beats. When you watch the movie, it'll be fun, but you're not going to get it all. Where this, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'd watch the show because it's only kind of like halfway through the book and there's a lot of additional interesting detail and the visuals are great. So you can then go back and read the book and get even more stuff. And it kind of fills in, like we talked about, it kind of fills in all those gaps that are just kind of quickly talked about in the book. So yeah, I think that says a lot about it. I really like the show. I mean, dystopian stuff is right up my alley. I love it. I know it's up Keith's alley, so you would agree, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many buddies you gave it. I gave it 3 out of 4 buddies.
Yeah, I think three buddies is accurate. It'd be like 2.75 to 3, but I'm gonna go with 3.
I wish I watched the show first, preferences, because I think the visuals and the twists that they add in the backstory would have been much more satisfying had I not read it first. And then you go to the book. I mean, this is what Magic did, but then you go to the book and you get more answers and you get a little bit more details on, especially the Juliet surviving the outside. That doesn't really get covered very well in the show, whereas the book covers that really well. It's like, oh, okay, I get now why she was able to kind of breathe out there.
Well, I think they're gonna get in on that in season 2.
Yeah, I'm sure in season 2. Yeah, that's true.
It's just funny as well that you think you have to watch a show to get more detail, because usually it's like the book gives you more detail. But when it comes to like Holston and his wife backstory or Juliet's childhood, like you need the show to get that background, which is funny.
I think the one part about watching the show first that helped was less about like characters' looks and appearances, but more so of like the layout of the silo itself. Like not having a visual to go off of when you first start reading about it. It's like, well, I don't even know what my mind would think that even looks like. But having that as kind of a reference of like floor to floor and how people get around and like understanding that there really only is one way up and one way down was helpful.
Yeah, and the actual floor layouts, I was like, oh shoot, like this makes a lot of sense where they're just like everyone's stacked on top of each other. It almost felt like a Star Wars world, like the individual floors, like a city in Star Wars, where it's just like a lot of steam coming out, like tons of doors that you don't know where they go, alleyways, but it's all metal. It was fun, and I think that helps with the visualization. Keith, that's just a quick, because you said earlier that they can't make any more metal, but you can get sent to the mines, which is where they get iron ore. So you can definitely get iron, that's for sure.
Maybe they're in, what countries have iron
They're
ore?
in Atlanta.
That's why they have Georgia known for having?
Yeah, I don't know. Moving to the country can name you a lot of beaches.
You know what peaches are.
That's what I said when Caroline was listening the other day. She goes, no, they're just peaches. That's for a different podcast.
No. Yeah. Research that on your work.
Magic better not be listening in if it's IT badges. All right, Keith. Magic, thanks for joining us as always. It was a blast. And Keith, what do we have coming up next on the BBC?
We got Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter.
Magic, pick that book up. Oh my God. So good. Great. Okay, cool. So we'll have Rage of Dragons out to you hopefully soon if Keith can get his ears working. And Magic, we hope to have you on again. I think you're our number one person at this point. I think you've exceeded the most guest appearances.
Yes.
Love it. All right. Well, it was fun, and I'll catch you guys for Rage of Dragons.
I'll be sure to listen. Number one podcast.
All right. Bye now.
Bye now.